Hey there, Melanie Benson Strick here, and today we're going to talk about what mindset you really need in order to achieve higher levels of success. Now, a lot of people think this is kind of obvious, but actually it's not. And I get asked this question all the time in interviews and when I'm speaking at events. Melanie, can you come talk to my group about how our mindset is dictating higher levels of success? And what kind of mindset do you know people have who are thriving and who are able to achieve higher levels of success? So I thought I would share some of the common traits or mindsets of someone who consistently creates higher levels of success. And these are the people that you kind of look at them out there and you think, wow, everything they touch turns to gold. They seem to have this limitless ability to achieve success no matter what they're putting their attention on. Well, there's a reason. And if you don't know this yet, then here goes. Your mindset is actually dictating your success or lack of success. And if you struggle or you're working way too hard or you're putting too much time and energy into the results you're getting, maybe you think, wow, this should be easier. There's probably a reason. And your mindset, aka your collection of beliefs and ideas and stories that you make up about money and success, has a huge influence over what actions you're willing to take or don't take. Now, there's a lot more to this, and you can read more about how your mindset affects your actions in my book, Rewired for Wealth, which we'll share at the end of this interview. Or sorry, we'll share at the end of this talk today. Sorry, I'm so used to doing interviews, I forget what I'm doing. But let me just share with you some of the things that I will tell an audience about what mindsets are in place already. First of all, people who consistently are making 6 and 7 figures, they are the type of people who the way their mind works is they see opportunity where other people see problems that paralyze them. So, many people tend to get stuck on the how, or they get really derailed by a problem or a challenge they don't know how to solve. And so all of your focus and your energy goes into that thing, that piece of minutia, and it will derail them from being able to achieve higher levels of success. Well, people who are consistently operating at those higher levels of success, they see these as opportunities, or they're focused on where am I going next instead of letting themselves get derailed. So just by sheer nature of the way their mind focuses, it catapults them instead of lets them get taken out of the game. There's also a conversation we should have about risk. See, people who are wired for higher levels of success, they get that they're going to take risks. These aren't like risks that are dangerous. These are calculated risks. They know they're going to be uncomfortable. They know that they're going to need to do things that they don't know how to do. One of my good friends always says, Natalie Ledwell always says, I bite off more than I can chew and then I chew like hell. Well, she's an Australian and that's their way of doing things. And many of us, we only do what we know we can do, which takes me to the third point. And that is, if you want to achieve higher levels of success and you want to thrive financially in your business, you may actually have to get outside your comfort zone. You can't necessarily do the things that you know and that you're really good at all the time. Sometimes you got to let yourself get on the edge. As a matter of fact, one of the interviews I did recently with Susan Leahy was all about success from the edge. And what does that mean? And how do you embrace being on the edge instead of resist it? Because on the edge, you're going to be uncomfortable. And when you know that you want to have a greater impact, you're an influencer, and the only way for you to get your message and your work out there in a bigger way, you're going to get uncomfortable. You're going to be faced with challenges and opportunities and new ways of doing things. And you're going to oftentimes have to let go of the rope of what you know and swing out there a little bit and be willing to flail and get really massively uncomfortable in order to do the thing that you were put on this planet to do. It's one of the things is when I work with people in my Awaken Leadership program, that's one of the things that we learn to embrace is how do I be in the uncomfortable not knowing and not lose it? Well, it's just a skill that you develop, and it's something that everybody can develop. You just have to know about yourself what your risk tolerance levels are and strengthen that muscle if you don't have a strong enough one yet. And knowing that this is what successful people do can sometimes be really advantageous, right? It keeps you from feeling so constricted and like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable. Well, if you know that's what you have to do to get to the next level, maybe it'll make it a little bit easier, right? Another thing is that people who have achieved higher levels of success, there's a mindset shift. They know they cannot do it alone. They've accepted that even though they're capable, they're strong, they're willing to do the work, there's too much to do and there's so much more that they can accomplish when they surround themselves with capable people who can help move the mission forward. So one of the things they have to do is learn how to delegate effectively and hire really good people who can free them up to do the things that only they can do. And it is a mindset shift, but it's also a skill development. Very few people, especially entrepreneurs, enter into a business knowing how to really be a great leader. As a matter of fact, all the time people are like, I don't even see myself as a leader. Of course, but you are, and you can become a really strong leader simply by learning how to hold the space of being a good delegator and let go and make sure that you're hiring the right people to help get things done. That's a whole nother topic for another time, but it is one of the attributes of someone who's able to consistently achieve higher levels of success. They don't do it alone. And that's because highly successful people are focused on the long game. They're not just focused on immediate cash flow. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't times when you focus on, all right, how do we get more money in the door? We had an unexpected blip. We didn't make the money we needed to. We got to do some things right now for cash flow. But their vision is focused on the future and where they're going. It's not always this in the moment panic and reactivity needing to get more money in the door today. And this is something that is important for all of us to know. When you want to achieve higher levels of success, you got to be focused on the long game. You got to have a big picture plan. Even if that plan changes along the way, you got to be able to focus on something bigger than what's right here in the moment in order to grow and expand your reach and your impact and your income. And along those lines, one of the other attributes is a big shift in mindset around money. And there's a lot of elements of money in business: making money, spending money, managing money, pricing things, right? So there's a lot of elements of that. So when you are thinking about how you're going to invest the money you're making, this is a huge mindset shift for many people. See, really, really successful people that constantly operate at the high 6 and 7 figure levels, they don't think about what things cost as much as they focus on an investment that will help them grow. So it's really easy to get stuck on, okay, this resource I need is going to cost me $500 a month. Do I have $500? That's the wrong way to look at it. That will almost always lead you in thinking, I don't have enough to do what I need to do. What you want to do is think in terms of investments. Am I willing to invest $500 a month in this resource, whether it's a consultant or a marketing strategy or something else that you need to grow your business? And if you think about what's the return and is this worth it to me right now, then you decide yes or no. Yes means even if you don't have it, then you get strategic about how to create the flow, the financial flow to cover that investment. But if you're like, I don't have the money, game over, you will never be able to really leap. You're only going to be able to have incremental crawling growth. So it's a great distinction to remember that you may or may not always have the answers of how you're going to pay for what you need. And the key is to make sure that you're thinking strategically in terms of investment and instead of what things cost. Now, you may as well say, look, that's not an investment that makes sense. Then the next piece of the question is, will it make sense down the road? Is there a time when it would make sense? What do I need to be willing to do to create that? So it may be yes, but not now. And that's a fair answer. But don't just leave it there. Then you have to come up with the game plan. And that's really, really important. I was watching an interview with Oprah Winfrey and Elizabeth Gilbert. It's one of the older interviews. I think it was from a few years back when she had her on the show to talk about her extraordinary book and the success from her book, Eat, Pray, Love. And there's a moment when she talks about, Elizabeth Gilbert's talking about how these women would come up to her all the time on her speaking tours and say, I love what you did going on this big sojourn across the world. And I've always wanted to do that, but I can't because this, and this. And she really, her heart would hurt hearing this. And finally, she discovered the answer was that you may not be able to do it now, but make a decision you will do it, and then work a plan to get there. Don't just leave it out there in the ethers. And I thought that was such a beautiful piece of advice. And it's the same thing that I want you to do about any future investment, whether it's hiring the right mentor for you or joining a high level mastermind like Awaken Leadership or something else like that. Or it's just simply being able to invest more in your team member or a marketing strategy, whatever that is. Don't just leave it out there willy-nilly. And that brings me to the last point. I mean, I could talk about 100 things, but I wanted to hit some of the high notes today. I want to talk about one more really big distinction between people who tend to kind of flail and not really get past a certain level of success, and the people who consistently achieve higher levels of success. And that is, you got to commit to the outcome you want to have. Decide who you need to be to achieve that. Get all in, and then let go of how you get there. Now, I know that sounds kind of easy, and it's not. Let's just talk to say the truth about it. But if you want to be a leader in your field, if you want to be an influencer, if you want to have a greater impact with your message, you're almost always not going to know how to do it, but you got to decide what the outcome you want is, and then let go of how you get there. Some of the best, most powerful things happen when you let go of how. And I have to learn this lesson all the time. I'll just come out of the closet, pull the curtain back and say, this is not something that's easy for me. I get it intellectually. It's not easy. And I've actually been committed to an outcome for a couple years now that I didn't know how to do, but I kept holding the outcome, and I would struggle with it, and I would resist, and I would get into fear. And then, I would be with my Awaken Leader Mastermind, and I would remember why I've committed to this outcome, and all of a sudden a new level of how would reveal itself. And that's where oftentimes we need to go, is just surround yourselves with the right level of support, with people who get it, who challenge and inspire you to stick with the goal and figure out the how as you go along. There's lots of ways to get to the how. But if you never commit and you don't decide you're going to do it, and you don't get clear who you need to be to pull it off, you're never going to get there anyway. So these are some of the things that I personally have had to do. And I work with people who are emerging as leaders in their business or in their work and in their industry. And this is what you can do now too. And I'd love to hear, is there something else that you need to do, or that you are working on doing to really shift your mindset to be someone who can create these higher levels of success consistently? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you're listening in on one of the podcast stations, you can head on over to melaniebensonstrick.com. Now, I promised you a resource, and what I want to share with you is the Rewired for Wealth. Now, whether you think of wealth as making money or wealth in terms of the richness of your quality of life and the quality of your business, we all have the same challenge in front of us, is how do we recode and rewire the beliefs and the attitudes and the ideas that got us where we are today, but may not necessarily get us where we're going next. And one of the fastest and most important pieces of that puzzle is to recognize what's the blueprint we've been conditioned to make a successful business from, and is it working for me? So in this book that I wrote called Rewired for Wealth, I tackle what the 7 money DNA blueprints are, as well as guide you through a lot of the barriers that people of all levels of success are experiencing that keep them from being able to have a greater impact and more influence in their work. So I'd love to give this book to you for free. It's available free right now. It's not always, so go ahead and check it out, rewiredforwealth.com. It's a digital book you can download and put on your computer or on your device and read it at your leisure. But one of the big things I want you to get out of that is some tools and techniques to start changing the way your mind works right now, so that taking the right action, making better decisions, and really having the mindset of someone who's wired for higher levels of success can start to kick in immediately. So I hope you enjoy that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on today's podcast for powering up your business from the inside out. See you again next week with another interview with one of my guest experts. Until then, Make sure that you are really evaluating the mindset that you are making decisions from and choosing what gets your yes and how you will take action. See you next week.